At this point, I should be making an intro about how the HOTONE AMPERO II STOMP is so much better than the first one, but it's lacking control options, yada yada. I'm just not going to. Let's jump straight in after one piece of housekeeping. HOTONE has lent me almost all of this stuff for me to have a play with. They're not paying me. They're not getting to watch this video before it's published. And if I do want to keep any of this stuff, I'm going to have to pay for it myself. So with that out of the way, let's jump into idea number one. If you want to reduce the amount of tap dancing that you have to do to change patches on the stomp while you're using it in stomp mode, you can use a tiny ampere switch, which is an external double switch, to do patch up and patch down. And the way you do that is you plug it in, obviously, TRS cable, so stereo cable, tap global, come here to controls, and change to the second page. And here, where you have EXPFS func, that means expression footswitch function, you need to twist all the way to the right until you get to dual FS, i.e. dual footswitch. And here, on the FS4 tap and FS5 tap, you need to figure out where the patch minus and patch plus functions are. Press back, and I actually have mine wired the other way around, so I have it sideways so it can fit the picture. So I want patch up on my A. So this one patch up, this one patch down, and then I can tap to go up, tap to come down. For idea number two, we are still using the ampere switch, but now instead of having to press and hold to get into the looper menu, and then press and hold a different button to come out of the looper menu, let's make this into a dedicated looper control. And because not everybody is the same, I'm going to suggest two ways of doing this. So in option A, let's go to Global, Controls, second page. Get used to it, you're going to tap a lot around this. We are going to use this as a direct looper control. So I'm going to make this switch, I'm actually going to do it the other way around. So foot switch 5, which is closer to me, I'm going to do rec play, and foot switch 4 is going to be looper stop. It doesn't say it here in the menu, but stop also does clear. So let's see how that works. So my only issue with this situation is that, as you could see, there is absolutely zero indication on screen that the looper is actually working. So if I come there, you can see I have loop recorded, it's there. You could hear it playing, but you don't know that it is there. So this means that, unlike in a dedicated looper, where you have LEDs or screens or something, if you're using this system on the main screen, you have to trust that it's recording, you have to trust that it's going to play back, you're going to have to trust that you remember that you recorded something before, and you have to trust that if you press it hold long enough, it's actually going to delete the loop. So for all of these reasons, I prefer to use this as a looper screen in and out control. And the way we get there is by pressing global, pressing controls, press right, who the thunk it, and on FS4 we're going to be looking, remember that's A, so I'm going to be looking for looper exit, and on 5 I'm going to be looking for looper. And now whenever I press this button, I'm taking into the looper screen where I can use the traditional looper controls from the stomp. And to get out of this screen, I'll just tap that switch. Anywho, of course you can also get into the looper screen by middle pressing and long pressing, but sometimes you just want immediate access to some of the functions that are secondary functions here, which leads me to, yeah, here's an extra tip for you. If you're happy with the patch change thingy and you never use this in stomp mode and you have no use for the looper, but sometimes you actually need to access tuner or a tap tempo, yeah, got you covered. Global, controls, tap right. You can have, oh look, FS4 as a tuner and FS5 as, oh, where are you? Yeah, tap tempo. So now that goes straight into tuner mode, that comes out of tuner mode, and this works as a tap tempo, as you can see by the BPM thingy changing. While I have you here, 10 seconds to tell you that there are affiliate links in the description and the first comment for all of this stuff, or if you want to buy any of the stuff, alleviate your gear acquisition syndrome, you'll be helping the channel if you use those links. Thank you. And now let's drop the switch and focus on an expression pedal. We will start by using this as a simple volume pedal. So I'm just going to plug it in, which I did. And as you can see from the top camera, it now sits next to my Ampero. It's still doing some funny stuff because I haven't configured it yet. So in the way to do this, as usual, global, controls, tap right, but now, instead of dual FS on the expression footswitch function, you go all the way to the left and you get EXP. Everything else goes blank here, which means that we're going to control this somewhere else. And the menu where you configure this now is the Control EXP menu, so top left. You come here and you come to EXP settings. First thing you will want to do is calibrate the pedal. So you tap calibrate, you lift the pedal fully up towards heel, okay, press next, fully down towards toe, next, calibration is complete. So with the pedal calibrated, and to configure this as a simple volume pedal, you come back to EXP settings, and in the target, under slot function 1, you just go up until you find patch volume, and press back, and this is now configured as your patch volume, as you can see by going to the edit menu. Oh no, it isn't, because you need to activate the expression pedal, and you do that by tapping the little expression pedal thing there. See that one? And now when you go to the edit menu, you see your patch volume going up and down. And of course all of this works beautifully if your intention is to be able to have more or less of the same sound in a situation that you can cut it off entirely at 0 or have it at full volume at 100. But you might not want this. You might want to limit the range of motion of the pedal. For instance, you can decide that instead of cutting it entirely, you might just want it to cut to half, whatever half is defined to be in this situation. And you do this, if you followed me, by coming to Control EXP, EXP settings, expression range, and you can limit both the minimum and the maximum values that you want your pedal to assume. In this case, I'm assuming that you might want to cut down for a rhythm part and increase it for a lead part. But even in this situation, we're still assuming that you want to change the same sound, only softer or louder. But you might want to change it in a more dynamic fashion, as if you were inserting a volume pedal between your guitar and your amp. And in that situation, you don't want to change the patch volume, you want to insert a volume block, which is what I have here, before your amp. So as you can see in this patch that I've created, you have the amp at the beginning of chain B. I'm running chain A into B, and I've inserted a volume pedal here as the first item in my chain. So what I'm going to do to make sure that I can control it is, first I'm going to turn it on, and then I'm going to come to Control EXP, and I'm going to change the target of my volume pedal to be A1 vol, controlling volume. And I'm going to leave the expression range between 0 and 100 for now, just to show you what it does. So as you could hear in that example, what happens now is, instead of me cutting the patch volume, I am actually cutting the input to the amplifier, which allows me to clean up as if I was fiddling with my knobs, volume knobs, or my volume pedal that I put between the guitar and the amp. Next idea, and at this point I've already stopped counting, I don't care how many there are. I know I said 10, but it's going to be more than 10, so ignore me. That's just for the algorithm. You can also use the expression pedal to vary the mix of your effects. Let's see how. So the way you do this is, now you can turn off the volume pedal, you don't need it. Let's say that I want to vary the amount of delay that I have on my signal, which is dictated by the mix control. Delay is the third effect on the B chain, so I'm going to have to go to Control Expression Settings, and look for my delay in the B3 chain. Okay, it's slot effects number 1, yes, and the parameter that I want to control with this, it's going to be my mix control. So I'm going to go back and demo. Right, so as you could see, I'm varying between 0 and 100, which in this case, in the Ampere, it means that 0, no delay, 100, no dry. This is full wet sound. And unless this is exactly what you want to do, you might want to vary the limit of the pedal, so the pedal range. And let's say expression settings, expression range, and let's see that, yes, I wanted to cut entirely my delay, but I never wanted to go above 30, and 30 is already going to be a really wet sound. Let's check this one out. A lot easier to control. But this is a relatively simple example if you only have one effect that you want to change the mix of. Now, what happens if you actually have a very carefully crafted and balanced chain of effects, and you still want to use the expression pedal to control the balance of the whole chain? Let's see how we can do that. For this one, as you can see, I've reconfigured my stomp in a slightly different way. So I have my chain A, I have a dynamic block, which is a compressor. I've got my amplifier block, and I've got my impulse response block. And then I derive into my chain B, which is going to have all of my effects. And that chain B is going to come back into chain A after a volume block. Also keep in mind that the last block on the B chain is also a volume pedal. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to use both volume pedals as a blend control. So I want one of them to go up and the other one to come down with the same expression pedal. So to achieve this, I need to go into Control Expression, EXP Settings, and for my first target, I'm going to look for my volume pedal on channel A, which is A for volume. I wanted to target volume, and I'm going to press right, and I'm going to look for the B6 volume. So now this is controlling both volume pedals at the same time. And if I go to my edit page, I can tap that volume and you can see that it is indeed controlling it, and that one is also controlling it. So I just need to turn both of them on, and both those volumes are being controlled at the same time. Now the thing is, I don't want both of them to be off and on at the same time, so I'm going to have to go back to Control Exp settings, and the expression range, I will decide, okay, so I want my dry sound when I have my heel down and my wet sound when I have my toe down. So for heel sound side, I want the first volume pedal on chain A to be completely open when my toe is down, when my heel is down, sorry. So I'm going to reverse the way it works to 100 to 0. And the second one is fine, it's going to be 0 to 100. And now to make this more clear for you viewing this at home, I will also activate the quick access knobs on parameters 1 and 2 so that they show you the volume when we are here on the main screen. So as you can see, with my heel down, volume A is 100%. With my toe down, volume B is 100%. Let's see how this sounds. So the next idea is the one that everybody's been waiting for, so I might as well just do it, you know. How to get this thing to control your wah-wah. So I've already set up a patch for this. I have an 800 style amplifier with a cabinet, impulse response and a delay, and I've got a wah-wah set up on block A2. The way to get the expression pedal to control it is roughly the same way that we've seen so far, with one slight tweak. Have to come to Control XP, expect session, blah da da, settings. You go to target, and now you have to select A2 wah. But here's the kicker. On the slot effects 1, this is just the name, it's the Petrus wah, okay, fair enough. But here on parameter 1, you will now have to come in and select position, because if you don't select position, you're going to be sweeping the maximum range of the pedal, which is not what you want. You want position. So you go back, you make sure that your expression pedal is on, you go back to edit, and now when you turn on the block, you can hear and see the position change. In this next idea, I'm going to do yet another type of transition from rhythm to lead sound. And I've already configured the stomp, and I have a volume pedal block. I've got an amp, which is, again, the 800 type, go figure. A cabinet impulse response, followed by a compressor to try and even things out, and then a delay and a reverb. And what I want to do here is have my expression pedal act like a volume pedal before the amp, but it's also going to be controlling the delay mix. I don't want any delay on my rhythm sound, and I want a lot of delay on my lead sound, and it's controlling the reverb. I don't want a lot of reverb on my lead, but I want a lot on my rhythm. So there's a reverse thing happening that you can see here. So with heel down, I have my volume on 30, so I'm lowering the input gain to the amp. My delay mix at 0, and my reverb is at 50, which is the maximum volume, maximum mix level that I want. And as I start coming in to toe down, my volume to the amp goes to 100, My delay mix go to 30, which is the maximum that I want, and my reverb comes to 10. One thing that you might notice here is that not all of the curves are moving at the same speed. This is because I'm taking advantage of the expression range controls on the stomp. So for curve number 1, that is the one that's going on the volume pedal into the amp, I have a linear curve, so the same travel of the pedal results in the same increase. For my delay curve, the one that goes from 0 to 30, I have an exponential curve, which means that the beginning of the travel of the pedal isn't going to change my value by a lot, but as I move towards the end of the curve, it increases a lot. So it's a curve that works this way. And for my reverb curve, I have the reverse thing, which is a logarithmic curve, which means that in the beginning of the travel of the pedal, my sound is going to drop a lot and then not drop by much by the end. If you see this in action, you see that as I'm on heel down, my delay mix is at 0, my reverb mix is at 50. If I move just a touch of the pedal, you see that volume has increased like 10-15, but the delay mix hasn't changed anything, and reverb mix is already cut by half. And as I carry on going, my delay is coming very slowly, and my reverb is now dropping off slowly again. And it's only in the last like 10% of the travel for the volume that my delay mix is going to go from 18 to 30. So as you can see, all of the curves have their own slight differences. This allows me in practice to have my very reverby rhythm sound, move the pedal a bit and reverb drops by a lot, and there still isn't that much delay on it. And then I have quite a wide margin to play with in the middle of the travel, in which both effects are at a very low level until I go for full delay. In this next suggestion, we're going to try and replicate the full-size multi-effects expression pedal function. You know, the one where you click for wah and click for volume pedal? Okay, we cannot do that exactly with this, because A, this expression pedal doesn't have a clicky thing, and even if it did, like this one, it doesn't transmit the clicky thing to the stomp. So we're going to have to figure out a way of doing it slightly differently. I've already configured this patch to have a volume block and a wah block before my amp and my drive and all of that stuff. And I've already configured the expression pedal to control both of them at the same time. And that's the problem. If they're both on, I don't even need to do anything with the guitar, just need to raise the volume and you can hear what's going on. So there is a volume being cut and there's a wah being activated. So this is not what we want. We want either the wah or the volume. How can we do that? In this case, it's not a simple matter of splitting the curves and going one up, one down, because that would just still mean that both of them are working at the same time. So one option could be clicking the volume on and clicking the wah off with two switches, but no, there is a very good solution for this, which I'm going to show you now. When you go on the main screen and you tap on the right, you can access the function of these three switches independently. And as you start scrolling, you can see that you can control the switches independently. So in this case, this would be, let's go in, this would be volume, this would be the wah, okay, independent. That's the thing that we were saying. We don't really want to be doing this all the time because it's messy. Okay, so let's go back. And we still have volume, we still have wah. But here, if we keep on scrolling past, we find one called control. And what this control does, you now have to come to control expression things, foot switch settings, control target. This is a function that will allow you to target all or some of the effects with one switch. And in this case, we wanted to target A1 volume and A2 wah. We don't want to target anything else. So now, if we go back here, you can see that we are toggling the volume and the wah on and off at the same time. But this is not what we want. We want to reverse it, right? Click one of them off. And now when you toggle control, the one that was on becomes off, and the one that was off becomes on. And now you can easily have a wah or a volume. In this next suggestion, we're going to take advantage of the dual chain processing of the Ampere and the capability of using 2 amps in different chains. And we're going to blend between them. So I've already configured this, and as you can see, I have this time a 45 type amplifier in chain A. I've got a MB Mark IV type amp in chain B. I've got a volume pedal here. I've got a volume pedal here in chain B. Chain B comes back to chain A, and they both go through a delay. The way I've configured this is through control thingy, expression settings. My target is for function 1, the volume pedal in chain A. For function 2, the volume pedal in chain B. And my expression range on chain A is 100 to 0. And on chain B, it's 0 to 100. So, as you can see from here, when I am in heel down mode, I've got full 45 type amp. When I am on toe down, I've got 100% Mark IV type amp. And anything in between, it's a blend of the two. This next idea can almost be considered cheating, because say you need to have a volume pedal constantly, but you don't like to have it right after your guitar, you don't like what it does to your tone, or you have a low impedance volume pedal that isn't suitable for guitars, whatever. You can use it in the effects loop of the stomp. And the way you do this is you can insert it wherever you want. I've just inserted it in my first effects block on chain A. And the way you do it is, I'm going to test it out here. You insert it just like you would any other block. You press the plus thingy and you come down to the bottom and you have effects send, return and loop. In my case, I'm using effects loop straight because I don't want to split the send and return. So I've got my effects loop there and I have turned it on, and I have a volume pedal which is on. You can see by the little green LED on the side that it's on. And I have my expression pedal controlling. Yes, I wouldn't forget to do this. It's the Whammy. So it's a frequency effect, pitch shifter, and it's set to control, again, you need to check this, A2 frequency. It's not minimum pitch, it's not maximum, it's position. And I have it on a linear curve from 0 to 100 to do 0 to 12 semitones. And in this way, I have a volume pedal that I can even set as a preset by turning the effects loop on and off and leaving the pedal in a position that I want. And when I want to use my pitch shifter, I turn my pitch shifter on with this switch that I've assigned to it and use the expression pedal. And the last suggestion I have for today is subscribe to the channel, because in one of the next videos I'm going to be demoing this, which is a MIDI controller, also by HOTONE. It's called the Ampero Control, so you can imagine what it does. 2 expression control ports, so you can either plug in one of these there if these 4 switches plus the 3 in the Ampere Stomp aren't enough for you, or you can plug both expression pedals, or you can have whatever you want. Subscribe, we'll talk about this in one future video. Until then, let me thank all of my coffee supporters, all of my caffeine suppliers that keep the channel running. If you want to join them, please, there are links in the description. If you have any other ideas, suggestions, doubts, etc., just drop them in the comments below. And until the next video, see ya.